It's time to get started. We are live here in the Nutmeg Tavern. I am John Townsend, your host for this wonderful discussion. We're going to be having about 18th century glass, and the guest is Aaron Jenkins, right? I got that right?
Yes,
okay.
That's correct.
Sometimes it's like, I know him, but
yes.
Did I get the name right? Anyway, we are going to be talking about 18th century glass. He's my expert today on 18th century glass because, well, he's done it and done a lot of research on it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Also, behind the scenes, you can't see them. On the other side of the time vortex, Lauren is in the chat. And Ivy is back on the console.
Hello.
Where she belongs.
Hey! Making sure the sound is all working and
Making
everything.
sure that it's actually right instead of when I do it. So, is there anything we need to get to that you need
You're
to
all
jump
good.
in? Nope, we're good. For the first time, we met at Kalamazoo. You probably talked to Ryan a lot before that.
Yes.
Some, right? So at Kalamazoo, it always happens every year. Have you been going there a couple of years?
No, this is my first
this is
year.
your
This is my first show, period.
Oh, wow.
So
I got you just at the right time.
that's right.
It was great to have a chat. 18th century glass is something that I have taken some pains to, know something about, but never quite enough to get into actually doing it. And it isn't, you don't really learn about something until you really have to do it or until you have to teach it. So that's fun when you get a chance to actually do both of those things. When did you start working in glass?
College. So I went to Anderson University. And at that time, strangely, they had a glass program. And strangely, my professor was from England, and Arlen Bayliss, and he was trained in the Royal College and kind of started into glass like right when the studio glass movement was taking off.
Okay.
So those guys were learning from Whitefriar guys, which is a factory over in England that's since closed. And so they were learning kind of their own techniques, but they were learning from the old factory workers.
Right.
And so I learned from Arlen, and actually some of these tools that I have here are his. And so, that's kind of how I got into glass. So.
Yeah. And it is an amazing thing that people have been making glass items for literally thousands of years, which is pretty crazy because it's not necessarily easy.
No.
And the techniques, at least in a non-factory kind of let's see industrialized setting, really haven't changed, right? So a lot of what we're doing is what they were doing in the 18th century is similar to what they might be doing 1,000 years before that.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah, for the
right?
most part. Yeah.
Maybe, they got better tools because they have more access to metals or whatever, or
Yeah. I mean, they're
chemistry.
Some of these things you can go back and look at, like these handles on these mugs. It's a Roman handle, and the Germans were still making Roman handles, 2,000 years later. So, and if you know the history, then you can see the lineage of where it came from, which is pretty cool.
So are most of the things here, glass-wise, on the table, things that you've made?
Yes,
Pretty much?
Everything I've made, except for that ceramic
that
mug.
doesn't matter.
Well, then you got one little bottle, I think,
Yes,
that
this
someone
little
else
guy.
made. So yes, everything on here is made by me.
Okay.
So
And so you mentioned doing it in college. How long has that been? How long have you been playing in glass?
well, a long time now. I'm old. So I went to college. I graduated in 2001, and then I moved out to DC, and I actually assisted at a place called Glen Echo Park that taught some glass there as well. Did that for about a year, and then came back and I started studying for the priesthood. I'm a Catholic priest, and so went to seminary, so didn't do any glass during that time. But a good friend of mine, Davin Ebanks, is in charge of the Kent State glass program. And so I just would go and visit him, and he would allow me to mess around with glass and kind of keep my hand into it. Right. And then about 5 years ago, kind of post-COVID, I decided I wanted to get back into kind of art making. And so Davin encouraged me to come up with my own studio setup and kind of do that. So that's what I have. I have my own studio that I work at. I rent some time from another studio and kind of play around with glass quite a bit. So
Okay.
it's been fun.
So run the folks through just the simplest, we don't need a long explanation about what glass really is, in case there are people out there that's like, okay, I use it every day, but I don't really know what's going on. So what's going on with glass?
Yeah, so there is a slide I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Number 2, Jamestown. So if you go to Jamestown, they have the old historic, not
Glass
that
house,
one. Yeah, that. Keep going.
Hold on.
That one's Dr. Syntax. That's
Here we go.
actually
That
a
one?
funny story. But yes, that one is. So so that's kind of the makeup of glass. And so if you think about that, coming over to America, we had this in abundance, right? We had sand, we got soda ash, we got potash, and we got lime. And so, when the colonials are coming over, they're trying to figure out how can we make money to ship it back to England. And so they mess around with glass. Jamestown doesn't really take off very well, but there's some that happens. But that's the basic. And then, of course, the big thing is they're firing the glass
Right.
with wood.
Right, so you need lots of fuel,
Yep.
and you probably need clay.
Yes, lots of clay. And you need a fairly particular kind of clay. Not so much for the furnace itself, but you do need a very particular clay for the crucible that the glass is melted in. Because that is where, 2100 degrees nonstop for months on
Right,
end,
right.
that takes a lot to keep going.
Yeah.
And so
So you need a very pure clay that can handle high temperatures.
yes. And that was one of the things they struggled with. And in fact, they would oftentimes still import that clay from, I think, Devon, England, in that area. And that was one of the things that early American glass makers were on the search for. And one of them was Worcester, and he supposedly found a source, and nobody has ever figured out where that source is, and because he kept it such a secret. So
Right.
yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, you can't fake the clay part. If it's got certain impurities, sometimes you can wash the impurities out, but at some point, if the body of the clay isn't the right stuff, it basically turns to a kind of a glass. You can't,
Yeah.
it's like, I need this to not do that. So
Yeah.
finding the right high temperature materials is very important.
And then the other weird thing about glass is once you get it up to that high temperature, you can't just let it go back down.
Right.
And especially with the crucibles, you can't do that because it'll just break.
Crack and break. Yeah.
So once you get it up, the guys would start blowing glass in October, and then they would kind of keep the furnaces going until May. And so there was someone, throwing wood into the kiln
Can you
24
imagine?
hours a day,
Can't
7 days a
stop.
week.
Keep going.
Yeah. And so it was a lot of
Not only do you have to keep chucking wood into your furnace, but you have to have someone continually supplying that cut wood.
Yes.
That will burn. That will actually burn. So it has to be kind of seasoned.
Yeah. So what they would do is when they weren't blowing glass in the colder months, they were going out and chopping trees, cutting it. They would actually have kilns to dry the wood to
Right.
make sure that it would get going.
Burn properly, yeah.
I can't imagine that they weren't cutting wood even in the wintertime
Right.
and still kind of keeping up with it.
Yeah.
So some of the pictures and stuff that you can see, you can see stacks of wood just all over
Right.
glass houses where they're just burning it down.
And not only is if we go back to that slide for just a second. Whoop, wrong one. Now I'm lost in
Now
the
you're
slides.
lost.
Find me that number 2 slide.
I'll get it for you.
But one of those materials, do you get it from the ash itself, from burning wood?
Yeah, so that's one of the interesting things because I've never blown glass on a wood-fired kiln. Strange. There's been some guys who do some experiments with it. So there's some in England who have done it, and some in Corning, New York. Corning Museum of Glass has
Right.
done one. They base
Maybe
mostly.
we'll have to do that.
So if I ever get a sabbatical again,
Okay.
it's on my list to actually build a wood-fired glass furnace. I've asked Corning if they would ever do it again, and I went and visited and saw the furnace that they made. But a lot of times what those folks are saying is that because you're burning wood, it's one of the components that you need in
Yes.
glass, and so it's actually making your glass more usable. So a lot of times you
It's
can
like fluxing it while you're doing
yeah,
it.
yeah. So it's you can reheat glass typically like 3 or 4 times sometimes with modern studio glass, but like with the old glass, like it was constantly getting ash put into it,
Infused with
and so
ashes.
it kind of makes it work longer, which I think is interesting. And then the other aspect too was the guys that I've talked to who have worked on a wood-fired furnace, like they say that it's essential to have a good working relationship with the guys who are feeding the fire and the guys who are working. So they would be like, you need to stoke the fire now.
Right. I need hot in 15 minutes.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so we want to get this up, so it's just work. And so they said it's much more of a team thing. Glass blowing is very much a team sport.
24-hour team sport.
Yeah.
Right, because like they need to like be able to have that kind of sometimes hopefully unspoken communication. If you're like, I'm at this stage, I need to
absolutely.
fire this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you work with someone in glass, you know
Yes.
when you got to do what. And so the same thing is true with someone throwing in logs of fire or
Yeah.
logs of wood and stoking the fire to kind of get it up and going. So
Okay, so we talked a little bit about what you need and the fact that it can be done in fairly primitive environments. So one of the things you might run into if you study glass is black forest glass. And
Yeah.
again, it kind of we will go into this spot with a whole bunch of trees, and as long as there is sand and the right kind of clay to work with, we can make a factory in the middle of the woods. And that's exactly what they do, and that's exactly what they tried to do, at least in Jamestown. Maybe failed, because they couldn't
I mean,
find the right kind of clay.
they made glass, so
Right.
I mean, it's a success.
But it wasn't a commercial success, let's call it that.
Yeah, who cares about the commercial thing? Just
The
making
art part
glass.
worked great.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yes, yeah, it's true. So, kind of the real kind of first commercial success in America is a guy by the name of Worcester, and he comes from Germany. He comes over to Philadelphia. He's first known as a button maker.
A button maker?
A button maker. And for some reason, he gets really interested in glass. Ben Franklin is one of his early investors. And so, they kind of get this studio going. Not a studio, they called it a glass house at
Right.
that time. I think the name of the company was United Glass Company or something. Very,
Right.
very modern sounding.
boring.
Really, yeah. But Worcester is what is a Worcesterburg, things like that.
Okay.
And so he's kind of the first one in, let me see, so I don't get my dates wrong, 1739 is kind of when he really starts doing it, and it runs until 1777.
That's incredible.
It
was a
is.
long
Yeah.
time period.
Yeah, it is. There's probably one that's happening also in New York a little bit earlier, but nobody really knows about it because it was under the Dutch and
Right.
they didn't keep records, and we don't have the records. So, but Worcester is definitely the longest running in colonial times. So he's kind of the one that everybody knows. So
So what kind of glass is he famous for?
so he is. So most glass houses are always making bottle glass, and they're always making window glass because you can imagine trying to ship window glass from England.
Yeah.
And so window glass is always in high demand in America. So that's really their bread and butter is window glass. And then the bottles they would make for local things. And then Worcester especially was very utilitarian. And so he's making bottles, he's making flasks, pints and stuff like that. It seems like he's actually making some mugs for the local ones. These are called barrel mugs. And so he's making those in jars as well. Is typically what he's known for. Later on, when his son takes over, and Caspar Whisper passes away, and you start to get some competition from Stiegel glass and some English competition as well. Then he seems to try
Stretch
to
out.
try to make some fancier stuff, but.
When they did window glass, was it the crown glass or was it the cylindrical
Both.
glass? Okay, so they made
Both,
both
but
kinds.
for the most part, actually, I think in Worcester, when they sell the glass house, they talk about a furnace for the flat glass,
right,
not
right.
the crown method, and so that was a very common thing. So that was mostly what they made the window glass
I
with.
would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So so some of these are based around his kind of glass work?
Oh well,
or is that
the mugs
Stiegel
for
stuff?
sure.
Okay.
and then just some of the bottles.
right.
The colors too, like I think that's what's interesting about American glass is that oftentimes we think of like glass
yeah.
really dark. And a lot of times American glass, early American glass was not really that dark. It was the colors from the glass come from kind of the natural trace elements in the sand typically. So your greens and your browns, those just come from the oxides that are in sand, and it just happens. And to get like a darker glass like this, you have to add an oxide to it. To get purple or to get blue or something like that, you have to add an oxide to that to get that color. Even clear glass, to get clear glass, you have to add an oxide to it because it takes color away. I think it's magnesium, but I'm terrible at chemistry. But yeah, so a lot of his glass is like, it's a very pretty greenish aqua sometimes. He has like, there's a couple of candlesticks later on that are attributed to him. Tavern candlesticks. They're just super tiny. And they're blue. It's a beautiful cobalt blue. So that's kind of fun. But I think that's the thing that stands out to me about early American glass is that it's not really that black glass. Black glass is coming from England.
Right.
So
do you have a feel for just how popular that was, say, the percentage of American-made glass in North America versus imported glass?
Well, Worcester was definitely still importing English glass, so he could never meet the demand. And Franklin writes to at least one other colonial who's up in the Massachusetts area who wants to start a glass house. So there's a demand, but there's just no way that they can keep up with it.
Right. I imagine that the vast majority of glass that people are going to see is probably English glass or even French glass or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was probably one of those, look, this is actually made here kind of a thing.
Yeah. I was just on there was like a little class, and it was given by one of the ladies who runs Williamsburg, and she's in charge of the ceramics and glass there. And I asked her, was there really any American glass that you could tell in the colonial time periods? And she's like, not that we have found. Later on, after the war, when you get into the 1800s, well, then there's a plethora of American factories that are starting to pop up. And so American glass becomes very common. But back then, no. The colonial, revolutionary times, no. You would find it, barrel mugs were probably the most common thing, jars and bottles. There's some attributed to them, but not a lot. Because that's the tricky thing about glasses. Like you can't you can't like scrape off a little bit of glass and do that. So sometimes they would put stamps on there, which would allow you to see it. But for the most part,
yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly, everybody's attributing it their piece to.
Oh yeah.
This must be made by.
Yes.
Yeah, sure, bud.
Yeah. I mean, some great collections. Corning Museum Glass has really good ones. Honestly, the best 18th century collection in America of American glass is probably Winterthur Museum in Delaware. Have you ever been there?
No.
I highly recommend it. It's an amazing place, and it's just got an amazing collection of stuff. If you like colonial America, early America, Winterthur is a must see place. And then Williamsburg obviously has a good collection, but most of it's not American.
Yeah.
So they have some American 1820s, that sort of stuff, but most of it's imported.
So you mentioned Stiegel. Tell me about their operation.
So Stiegel, he's a fascinating guy. He's a German. He comes over. He marries into a family that has an iron furnace. Elizabeth furnace is what he inherits. He names it after his first wife. He's a German, so he's a Lutheran. He's a very devout Lutheran by all accounts. He actually endows a church there in Mannheim. It's still there. They still have a rose ceremony where they always give a rose to the family of Stiegel.
As rent.
Yes, as rent. And so it's very cool to go and see. But he burns hot and then flares out. So like I think he's active for about 10 years really. Really like over the top. Like
But I think that's what gets him in trouble, right?
It is. So he fashions himself a baron. If you go to Elizabeth Furnace, which is a wedding site now that you can rent, which it's gorgeous. You should rent it if you need to get married in Pennsylvania. But there was a hill, I guess, that he would have a cannon on, and so when he would arrive home, they would shoot off the cannon.
Of course.
Why
I
not?
do that.
Why not? Why not? But he's very interesting because he really tries to bring in kind of the finer glassware. And so he's the first one to kind of make flint glass or leaded glass or kind of all kinds of stuff.
So flint glass is really hard glass? Or
It's
finer,
clear,
Okay.
clearer glass. And so he's the one that kind of really tries to find that. He brings in a bunch of people from different places. So where Worcester is almost always bringing in his workers from Germany. Stiegel actually steals one of Worcester's glassmakers, which is kind of interesting, to start it up. But then he quickly brings in Englishmen and then supposedly even Venetians.
Wow.
I have my doubts about a Venetian coming over and working in America at that time, just because of their tradition. But he's probably Italian, probably in that area.
I saw it
Maybe.
happen once. So
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it was. Knowing his personality, he probably played that up a little bit much, but we'll see. But that's how he's able to start making some finer things. And then the interesting thing about Stiegel is he really, I think, is the first glassmaker to kind of make truly American glass. So like, all of Worcester stuff is bottles. It's all based off of stuff that's kind of there.
Yeah,
I guess
commodity.
I guess you could probably say the barrel mugs were there. I don't know of any barrel mugs that were made in Europe, but probably based on something that they had over there. But Worcester's, because he has an iron furnace, he's able to have, he's got all the materials, he's got all the workers to actually make some molds that allow him to do some truly American stuff, which is really, really cool. So his famous one, let's see, we're way ahead, or we're all out of sync, so I can't find it. But 14, I think, 14 maybe.
Slide 14.
Yeah, slide 14.
Yeah, slide 14.
Maybe.
Find us 14.
Yeah.
She takes it away.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So this was from Speed and Style Tony, and he's asking, is glass a step above pottery but less than fine china? Or do they kind of exist like apples and oranges where pottery has its own kind of levels and then glass has its own levels of fineness and quality?
Probably a step above pottery, just because pottery is a little bit easier to make.
Right.
Glass is nice because you can usually see the stuff in it that you want. And people associate it with, I think, some finer things. But it's very utilitarian as well. Like, it was treated kind of like the plastic. So, as an example, a half pint flask.
Yeah.
These were sold by the dozen for 3.5 shillings, which I think works out to about the cost of a bottle of water today. At this,
No,
Maybe.
actually, I would put higher than that. It depends on the shilling, really.
Yeah.
Because it's all over the place, right?
Okay.
So it
Yeah.
depends on whether it's a sterling, English shilling or some faux American thing. It's all inflated.
well, it was Philadelphia, so whatever
if
that
you have
was.
it's Pennsylvania money, who knows what it could be worth?
Yeah. So they would sell these by the dozen.
Right.
So and then when Worcester goes out, I think he's got 8,000 bottles in his shop when he closes.
Yeah, right.
So they're just making tons and tons of
Yeah.
it. And it's probably because they have plenty of people wanting it. And then people wouldn't come in and just buy a bottle. They would come in and buy like a whole
This,
set,
that, and the other thing, yeah.
and then they would use stamps to mark the bottles. And then, of course, you've talked about it. They would refill those bottles and just keep using them. So, so it is a step
it's-
above ceramic.
I think
but-
it's really apples and oranges.
Yeah.
They really have their own kind of particular uses and use cases, and some of them are high and some are low, right? So sometimes it's like...
Although it does sound like you could classify it as definitely above earthenware, but
Yes.
below
Oh.
porcelain, it sounds like. So somewhere in there, most of
Yeah, that's probably
depends.
true.
Yeah.
But you get into the clear stuff. You get into the drinking glasses. You get
Yes.
into the finer like candlesticks or sugar bowls or I forget what these are called. decanters.
Yes.
Like that stuff is all glass.
Yeah. You
Yes.
just don't make a wine glass out of clay, right?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't even a fancy ceramic thing. You know, like it was fine china. It's just not. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Some things glass is truly the only medium, right? For a good wine glass, glass
Yeah.
is just the medium you're going to go with.
yes,
Sounds good.
yeah. They were definitely drinking Madeira out of glass, not out of ceramic. So
Do we have our slide 14 there?
Okay, this
should be
is
a
the
couple.
one that's numbered 14. But I
Oh,
don't know
that's
if
the wrong
it's.
one. Sorry, it's the purple one.
Okay,
Mine's the purple one.
That purple one.
give me a minute. I gotta find the purple
Well, we
one.
could just go through them,
But good.
and then and you catch up. But maybe if you can find us the purple one, and then
Okay,
That's-
I'm looking.
I thought that I put it on there, but maybe I didn't.
Ah, here we go.
Yes, that one.
Perfect.
So this is, I think, like the prettiest thing that Stiegel ever made. Obviously, he's not making it; his workers are making it. This is called the Diamond Daisy. This one is found in the Met in New York, but you can find examples of it in Winterthur. You can find examples of it in Corning. You can find examples of it in Mannheim. They actually have a very lovely little museum there. There should be. I think the next slide might be me holding one. And it gives you a sense of scale. Like they're very, very tiny. And so, yeah.
yeah, there you go.
So they're very, very tiny. That's not the Diamond Daisy pattern, but you can see it's a different pattern itself. So over the last few years, I've been working hard to try to figure out how to kind of reproduce that pattern. And I think I was finally successful kind of last week. I don't know if you want to.
Last week. This one's not very old.
Actually, that just came out last week.
Yeah.
So, one of the tools that you use is I call it an optic mold. Some people call it a dip mold.
Right.
And basically you dip your glass into here, you blow into it, and then you pull it out. And it can be kind of tricky because you got all the little design patterns,
Right.
and so
you
the
gotta
glass.
wiggle it out, kind of.
Yeah, and you can't let it sit there very long
Right,
because
yeah.
the glass if the metal gets hot,
Yep.
then it'll want to stick to the glass. So it's kind of tricky to do, but I think this is probably how he did it. And so he was able to do this because he had iron workers, and he was making really fine
Yeah.
Stuff.
Stove plates
Thank you.
and
Yeah.
fire backs.
Yeah, yeah.
So you would take the cast iron, you'd make an intricate pattern, pour the hot metal in, and it would make a decorative fire, or like a wood stove, but it was all decorative.
Yeah, so he had all of that stuff, and so I think he was able to make his out of iron. I had to pour mine out of aluminum because
Iron's hard to do.
iron's really, really hot, and it doesn't work very well in plaster in a backyard.
You tried it with like graphite powder in there to keep it from the heat?
I put silica powder in
Okay.
there, so that helps a bit. But yeah, it's
Here, let me try getting a close-up. It's kind of out of focus here. Let me try it. There you go.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see.
Yeah, so obviously
pattern
the
on that.
shape of that is still not quite right as far as the bottle goes.
Well, that's
but,
not the important part.
Well, I mean,
you got
it's
this
a kind
to
of a-
happen. That's
yes,
what's
yes.
important.
No, I'm super
The
excited.
rest of it is whatever.
I honestly couldn't believe it when we finally pulled it out, and I was just like, "Holy cow, that actually worked!"
So it comes out, and then you have to, and then you increase its size and adjust it and all that, right?
So yeah. So basically, well, let me see. So
We've got tools here too.
we got tools. So we start with a pipe, and a pipe is a pipe, right? So this is iron. This is a more modern one. So this is stainless steel.
Right.
They would have just used straight up.
But that would
iron.
start to change the color of the glass
Oh
and
my gosh.
everything.
I can't imagine what they had to work with because the nice thing about stainless is that it doesn't
Yeah,
increase heat.
contaminate.
It-
Oh, yeah.
The heat doesn't
Keep
transfer
going,
heat.
yeah.
So here you can see kind of where the pipe stops getting hot.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have just, I don't know how they did it. So you gather glass on here, kind of like honey. If you've ever gathered honey out to
Right.
put it on your toast, like that's basically what you're doing. You blow into there to get a bubble, and then you would put it into a mold. Or, in these cases, you
Right.
would then use tools
To shape it.
to start shaping it. So we have jacks. These are, these have been the same forever. And so you would use these to kind of neck down
Shape
to
it.
shape it. You can even use it like this to kind of get you straight edges and stuff like that. But yeah, when you come out of the mold, then you can blow into it just a little bit to expand it. You can't blow into it a lot because if you heat it up too much and you blow into it too much, then that design's going to go
Right,
away.
you're going to lose it.
So, so that's kind of how you start it. And
But the problem is this mold, it's smaller at the bottom, it's bigger at the top, obviously, so you can get the item out. But
Yeah.
yet the bottle needs to be bigger at the bottom and smaller at the top.
Yeah.
And the design at the bottom can't be too intricate because it's going to start to disappear.
Well, yeah, and there's an interesting thing on this, because when I was looking at the design, I was just like, oh, that's perfect for like blowing into this kind of mold because it's going to come out so much easier. I don't know if you can hold that up there and see, but this is what we call we call it a pineapple mold, and it gives you like some really, there's just like tons of little teeth in there basically that grab the glass, and so trying to pull the glass out of there is just
Right.
You
It
got it.
kind of wants to
Yeah.
contract on its own anyway,
Yes.
but getting it to release out of
Yeah.
there and not mess it up and stretch it in weird ways.
But in this design, you can see it's like, okay, the complicated part
Yeah.
is at the top, and then this is very simple, and then that comes out very easily. So I was amazed at how easy it was to demold the piece. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Right. And so you've got similar pieces here that have ribs
Yep.
or
So these
whatever.
are-
Those are easy, right? Because
Yes.
they kind of slide right out, the ribs do.
Yep. So you just got to go in hot. You
Yep.
got to blow. You got to make sure you do it. So metal molds are pretty easy to work with, and then we also have wood molds. So here is kind of a wood mold. This one typically they would be wet.
Right.
Because wood, what you're doing is wood allows you to go in and do that, and it doesn't actually, if your wood mold is smoking, that's bad because you're burning your mold. You want to see some steam coming off there,
Right.
and the steam is nice because it doesn't actually let the glass touch the wood, so it's riding on a layer of steam, and so this
That's
would,
how you would do that.
coming out. The problem with a wood mold too is, if you do have steam on there, well then it wants to compress in because the steam
Right, it's
doesn't really
pushing
have
it.
anywhere.
Right.
And so it can be very tricky to try
Right.
to, you blow in and you have something that's perfectly
it's
square,
zzz.
and then you come out and
Right.
you let off the pressure, and then suddenly it collapses in on you. So it can be a little tricky to kind of do that sometimes, but you can get different shapes and
I
different
mean,
sizes.
imagine you're still working with this honey analogy. You've got this big blob of slightly hardened honey, and you've turned it into a shape, and it's trying to do its own thing. You can't hold it sideways.
Yep.
It's going to be dipping. You have
Yeah.
to keep rotating it, and
Yeah, imagine throwing a pot sideways
Right.
that is over 2,000 degrees and you can't touch it with your hands.
Right. Careful, and it's continuing. I mean, even a pot's going to stay mostly right. So when you're throwing pottery, it kind of is stable, but this is continuing to blur. Just kind
Yes.
And gravity isn't on your side.
Right.
in
Well,
this-
it can be.
It can be.
Oh, you can use it for
Oh yeah, you
creating.
use it, and you use centrifugal force. I don't know if that's the wrong term, but
Yeah.
you can use it to change the shape.
Right.
You make a bubble, and you want that bubble to be long. Well, then you just hold it up and do it, and you can actually twirl your pipe and use that to throw it out. So, and a long neck on a bottle, basically that's you blowing a bubble with kind of an elongated thing, but then you heat that back up and then you hold it so that it's
Right.
holding
And
down,
natural, you
and
just
then
kinda
it just kind of
stretches out.
yeah. So if you've done it right, you got this heavy glob of glass on the end and a thinner neck, and then that thinner neck stretches. Yeah, there's a lot. I as a priest, I'm amazed to watch my organist play because he's playing with his feet,
Right.
and I'm just like, that's crazy.
Yeah, you can't do this and that.
Yeah, but then they come and watch me blow glass, and they're like, how do you do that? How do you do that? I don't know. So it's fun.
Right.
You want to break for just a second? Kind
Sure.
of a couple different questions.
Yep.
So the first question that I have is, people were kind of talking back and forth a little bit about lead specifically in the glass. So, is there lead in the glass from the colonial time period?
If it's clear,
Okay.
there's a decent chance that it has some lead in there.
Okay. And then they were talking a little bit about the fact that some people feel like the lead in the glass is inactive, and some people feel like if there's stuff stored in it long term, it leaches in. Have you ever run across that?
Yeah, so I was told that I was wrong on this because I always assumed that it didn't leach out.
Right.
That's what I learned in college.
Right.
But then I think they've done some recent studies where they've shown that it actually can start to leach out a bit.
Right.
And so, that's why it's very hard to find leaded glass anymore.
Right.
Not just because you got lead going into the air and so you got to have scrubbers and stuff on that. So Steuben in New York has closed down. I think there's still one over in Ireland. Can't remember its name at the moment, but they're doing some.
Yeah.
But honestly, like the thing about lead is what lead does is it allows the glass to stay hotter for longer. And so it would be kind of what we now call soft. It's soft glass.
Yeah.
And so it gives you a longer working time period. Where this glass is made more from bottle glass,
Yeah.
which is actually probably more the glass that colonials would have been using. And it has a shorter work time. So it
Right.
means it cools off faster. But it's a trade-off because you have
There are pluses and minuses.
Yeah, you have soft glass, which allows you to work longer, but it's soft, and so it's harder to get kind of a crisp shape to it. But
Yeah.
the more bottle glass is like it's easier to kind of keep the lines in there. It's easier to get kind of a nice definition of hot and cold, and you can manipulate the hot while the cold stays cold and stays put. And so it gives you the ability to make some interesting shapes that are there. So when I look at some of the colonial stuff, I'm like, I bet that's easier to make in
Softer glass.
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
harder.
Yeah.
yeah. Usually I bet that's easier to make in bottle glass
Yeah.
because they have such defined edges and stuff like that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's, again, I'm not an expert on chemical analysis of glass or anything, but what I've been told by smarter people than I is that the glass that they were using in colonial time periods is probably closer to our bottle glass than not. If you go up to
But the
Coke,
original question is about lead itself.
Oh, yes,
And I'm
sorry.
not sure that there was all that much lead in their glass in the first place.
well,
right?
it doesn't take
Right?
much.
Doesn't take much.
But they
Doesn't
were
take much.
they were very interested in whether lead was leaching, and that is interesting that that people's idea on it has shifted over time. So perfect. Good to know.
Yeah, I think it really has to do with probably the other glass chemistry components to it, and whether or not acids can even, break into the glass. And if you see old pieces of glass, like glass that's been under the sea or glass that's been in
Dirt
kind of
especially.
dirt situations, you can see how it's been attacked and different things have happened to the glass. It can look really weird.
Oh, yeah.
Like a metallic surface it gets in some circumstances. So obviously certain kinds of glass are much more prone to chemical attack than other kinds. Some of them, they use specific glasses for chemical experiments, and they're very, very neutral, and they can't be attacked. So it really there's so much that can happen with the chemistry in glass.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I got a couple other super chats here. This one's from Mandatory Carrie from up at the beginning. Thank you. I had a question, but I forgot it. Smiley face.
Well, hopefully it was answered.
Right? And then this one's just this one's a member chat from Kidlopo. Hello, all from Michigan.
Oh,
And then this one's from Farmer's Wife. This is a super fascinating. Thank you for the thought-provoking Friday. Love you, Townsend.
thank you.
And then this one's from Max Arcole. Great guest today. Thank you so much for coming to the tavern. And then this is Twisted Branches Fishing Sense in 10 Townsend's memberships. So
Thank you very much.
And then Rose McGuinn sends in just a super chat. So thank you, Rose. Rose was wondering, she had a question. She was wondering if the Ben Franklin stove was connected to the glass making at all. But it looked like the technology of the glass blowing furnaces was quite different. Like they were much larger.
But his connection to that person who was connected to the iron furnace, or was it that
No,
that was
so
Stiegel?
so yeah,
Okay.
Worcester and Franklin was actually an investor in Worcester, and a lot of this information that we get about the Worcester factory is from Ben Franklin,
Oh, very nice.
and so some of his scientific glass actually comes from Worcester.
Okay.
So some of that has theirs. Now, when he was over in France and all that, he got some there as well.
Sure.
But yeah, you can look it up and see some of the stuff that we know was made in Worcester's glass factory for some of his scientific things.
Oh, wow.
I would be fascinated to know if he had that little glass instrument that he made.
Right, the glass harmonica.
Yeah. I doubt that it was made in Worcester, just because it would need to be a little bit more precise. But and
They're just glass
Might be-
bowls.
yeah, but glass bowls that fit in completely. And I don't know if it was just the type. I don't know if it was leaded. Leaded glass or not. So, because that gives you a nice sound.
Could be why he died, because he had all that.
Could be. So,
Okay,
Was that it?
all cut up.
Okay.
We're good.
All right.
Excellent. So we've got all these pieces. Show us some. Well, should we do this? We got too many things. There are the tools to talk about,
Yeah.
and then there's the glass pieces. Then we have the slides. Let's go to the slides real quick.
Okay.
And that way, can you start us off at the beginning, and then we'll spin through them. Okay.
all right. So this is me and my dad at the Kalamazoo show. This is our very first show ever, and I originally got in one table. And then thankfully I got two. And when we started unpacking, I was like, oh, I
need
didn't
three.
realize I had made this much stuff. So it was nice. And then I have some pictures from the Diderot's. He has a lovely little section on glass
Right.
in there as well. So I got some original not original prints, but prints that the Corning Museum had done to
We
display.
can see those in a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's that.
And then I just found this one recently. There was this is Dr. Syntax, which I guess was kind of a comedy thing.
Yeah.
That was written in 1820s, is what I saw.
Right,
So he was a minister. So I thought, oh well, it makes sense that I would have this picture. And of course, Dr. Syntax is having his hair caught fire by the other glass blower there.
Safety first.
Yeah.
Lots of physical comedy.
Yeah, and then in the background is the furnace itself, and that's actually what's called a beehive furnace. And so you had this circular furnace, and then the fire would be fed from underneath, and you would just have all these different working ports to
Have
come
you
out.
seen the glass furnace that they use for the stained glass window manufacturer
Kokomo?
down? Yeah.
I have not been to Kokomo, but I
Have you
know
seen
of it.
like
Yeah.
videos of it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it's like a central sort of,
Yeah. This is still a very common design.
industrially, yeah.
Yeah, very common design.
right. So there we go. And we see a person there. He's got glass that he's working on the ground.
Yeah.
there.
So
He's
you see
probably
some of the
flattening
tools
it.
hanging there. You see the
Right.
jacks hanging there by
Right.
Doctor. And then he's got it's probably a piece of metal, or it could actually be a piece of
Marble?
marble
Yeah.
or something. And he's using that, and what that does is it shapes it, but it also pulls heat out.
Yeah.
And so as you're
Kinda
blowing,
hardens it,
as you're blowing into glass, you want the bottom of the glass to stay thicker, so that you can transfer it to the punty to open up the
Right, the
the
top of
end.
it, yeah.
And so so he's using that to both shape it, but then also cool it.
Right, and we see all the bottles up around the top,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and apparently in this case it was sort of a something people could come and watch.
Oh, yeah.
Which we don't really think about that
Yeah.
industrially. We don't see that happening a lot in a big factory and people walking through and watching it.
I believe
But-
it's Worcester. They would actually in the wintertime, because it was they were blowing glass in the wintertime. They would
Come on
actually
in.
have they would have sleigh rides from Philly to the glass house,
Right.
and it was like this whole thing. Like it was a dinner and a show,
and
basically.
they'd sell you
Yeah.
a bottle. if
Yeah,
you-
exactly.
Right? As a
yeah.
commitment?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So we showed that.
Yep. So that's
no.
kind of very primitive. That's from Jamestown as well. So they would use rocks and clay and stuff like that to kind of get it
Make
all
their
together.
furnaces.
Yeah, you
and
can see.
You have different furnaces for different things. Too?
Yes. So we have, you would have a furnace for fritting. And so that would basically be, you take all the materials, you put it into a furnace, you melt it down and make glass. And then you take that glass out and allow that to break and cool and stuff like that. And then you would throw that into your working furnace.
Right.
And it would just give you a better quality glass.
And then when you're done with the glass, you still can't just
You still
let
can't do
cool.
it because you have to have the glass maintain a heat of around 900 degrees and then slowly cool down.
Right. So you have a third furnace
Yes,
for
and a annealer.
tempering the glass.
Yeah, annealer. And oftentimes these furnaces were like just right next to each other. to help with
Share heat.
share heat, and just conserve on that.
Or maybe it's a different
But
part of
you
the
can see
furnace.
that pile of wood that little kid's throwing in there.
Right.
So, you know,
Well, that's
oftentimes.
like for an hour. I mean,
Yeah.
he's going to be using that
Well,
up instantly.
Yeah.
I know how these things eat wood.
And that is
Worcester?
Worcester, but his son, Richard.
okay.
Richard Worcester. So,
He's not even got a glass cane or anything. I mean, come on.
no, but I think the next slide might be his bottle.
Okay.
So this is a very famous bottle, Worcester bottle, and a couple things. You can see the stamp on there. That's RW. So this has been attributed to that. You can see those lines in the neck.
Right.
That's actually one big bubble that's in the neck.
Stretched out.
Yep,
Right.
stretched out. And then you can see the top there, and how what they did was they actually took the top and they just kind of rolled that over completely.
Fold it over.
Because a lot of times we think of them putting a wrap of glass around
Right.
it. But this was actually a very common finish for Worcester's bottles and even Stiegel's bottles, and then even later. So I think it was
Possibly
kind
a
of,
finer?
no.
No. I think a cheaper way to do it.
I think it's just the way they
Just
did
a
it in
different-
Germany.
Oh, okay.
That would be my guess.
Right. And is that a
So-
little inclusion in the side of it or something?
Looks that way, yeah.
Just a little hunk of, looks like a dead fly sticking there, but it isn't.
Yeah, it's a
little
piece of the
hunk rock or something.
yeah, it's a piece of the furnace that's fallen off and is on there. So this is from Diderot's thing. It's been colorized, but he's sitting at a bench, and you can see that's got the arms, and you kind of lay your pipe on the bench, and then you can see he's got his tools kind of lying there. But then you can also, in the top right corner, you can see him blowing into the optic mold that I showed earlier. And then
Yeah,
you can also
down the
see him rolling the glass on a marver, which is either a piece of
Right.
metal or marble, which is where the word came. But in the left, you can see it's like, if you watch modern glass blowing now, like you don't have flames like coming into your face,
Yeah.
and you don't have smoke coming into your face as well. But like if you're doing a wood-fired furnace, like
Yeah, you're
that's
gonna
all it is. It's just flame and smoke, and so it had to be very difficult to kind
Right.
of.
So they have
figure it out.
special protective kind of visors,
Sometimes,
to keep
yes,
that away.
they would do that.
Would they be leather?
possibly something that's gonna.
Yeah, it could actually be a piece of glass,
So they could see through it.
so they could see through it. It could
you would think
possibly.
that
be.
would just let just as much heat through it as not.
But it might help protect
Possibly.
you from
I mean,
the
if it's
smoke.
darker glass, then it's
Maybe.
gonna keep some of that. But yeah, I doubt that it's metal, because metal reflecting,
Yeah.
it's just gonna
Yeah.
get hot.
Yeah.
So it was probably wood. It was probably leather,
Right.
something like that.
Okay. And hey, guess what? Their shirts were probably not red and green. They were probably just white. But
Yeah.
we'll go on.
Well, it is interesting on the shoes. Like you find some shoe buckles in there, but I was talking to another glass blower, Phil, out east, and he mentioned that they probably wore mules, because you can imagine like if,
slip out of.
yeah. So you can imagine. I actually had a lady do this once, where she dropped like a really hot piece
Yeah.
of glass down her shoe,
Yeah.
and it was tied.
No.
And then you couldn't
Oh.
get it off, and it was
Right.
like a second or third degree burn by the time
Yeah.
she got
Right.
it off. And so mules, well, you can just kick those
Yeah,
off and
that would
Well,
be
be
better.
done with it. you
And
know,
like
so.
in foundries, you'll have a special covering over the top of your boot, so that if you poured hot metal on your foot, it just goes off.
Water
like
off a duck's back.
Not
Yeah.
into the laces of your
Yeah.
shoes and burning your foot forever.
literal steel toe boot.
Right. So here we've got helpers.
Yeah. So again, team sport. So
Yeah.
you have someone, an apprentice basically, who's learning how to
That's when they're
punty.
little.
Yep. Yeah. So they're puntying the rod. So he's bringing that over. He's putting the punty on the bottom. So if you look at a bottom piece of glass, there's like a, usually some kind of wound or
Right.
scar on the bottom of it. That's a punty. So that's where the rod has been placed. So
And
that
this
you can,
other rod has probably a little bit of
just a
ball
little
of hot
bit.
glass
just,
on the end,
just a tiny bit.
so that it can stick on, and then you break off the first one.
Yep,
Right. So
yep,
now
yep.
it's stuck to the bottom, and your top is open, and you can start to work with it.
Yeah, and that's the trickiest part, is you got to have your punty at the right temperature. You have to have your piece at the right temperature, because if it's too cold, it won't break off. But if it's too hot, it definitely won't break off,
Right.
and it'll keep moving. It's just a mess, and so it's like one of the hardest things to figure out. But then in the bottom right, you can see the apprentice taking the piece of glass and putting it back into the annealer, which, or leer is what they would sometimes call it.
Right.
And they would bring that down over temperature.
Right, and that was quite a long time, wasn't it?
24 hours typically.
You think it was only that?
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
you'll
today
see in
it's
other
that,
pictures
but-
where there's this big basket, or they're probably in a kind of a ceramic holder, but they just stacked a whole bunch in there. You just see them just thrown in.
Yeah,
there.
they do just
toss more and more in there.
Yeah,
right?
and they throw it away like laundry almost, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like how are you doing
How
that?
does it
But
survive?
But
Yeah. So yeah, we can see in that bottom center part where he's working on the goblet here from the back. He can now work on the top because it's just been disconnected.
Yep.
He's opened up what this bubble has been, so it's an open top.
Yeah.
And then when he finally finishes it and gets it all, he can break it off the punty, right?
and put it
and
away.
then the guy tosses it into
yeah.
the...
And you want to work the opening for two reasons. One, it breaks off so it's sharp.
Right.
And two, you typically want to shape it so it looks nice. But a lot of times on like flask and very cheap things, like it's a pretty, it's not a very finished top. It's almost like
just heat it up enough to smooth it.
exactly.
And good enough.
Yep.
Who cares? This is
yeah,
cheap, right?
yeah.
So notice figure 4 there on the bottom and on the extreme left. Here, that's the part where he's got to reheat the top of that glass so he can work it.
Yeah.
And then he's working in the center, and then he's finally finished with it.
And you have to turn that the entire time. So
Right.
you have to remember they're heating it, they're trying to figure out how hot the glass is, and they're turning it so that it stays on center. But you don't want to turn it too fast, because if you turn it too fast, it starts to flare out.
Right.
And if, so it's yeah. So this is the interior of what a furnace would be made, or how a furnace would be made. This is probably how they were made in America later in the 1800s. Most of the American furnaces that I've seen Kearney archaeological digs on are more square shaped, but you can see kind of they would have a pit where they would just feed the fire,
Right.
and then you'd have the clay and the vats of glass and kind of all that stuff. And those vats there are probably holding 300, 400 pounds of glass.
And the scary thing is they will fail at some point.
Oh yes.
They're going to crack and break open, and then, I mean, if you're smart, you know it's going to break open, and you take the glass out before it does that.
Yeah.
But if it just fails, you've got a furnace full of,
Yeah,
hot glass.
you would just count on that.
and then you'd have to probably figure out how to scoop it out of there and hope it doesn't continue to, because it's going to attack the inside of your kiln or
Yeah.
furnace.
Yeah, it's just there's some fascinating videos, British Path on YouTube of guys from Whitefriars changing out pots while it's hot.
Right.
It's just it's crazy.
Careful,
Crazy
careful.
to watch.
So, Speed and Style Tony's asking, how hot do you get working glass? And you said there were a couple different temperatures.
Yeah, so I tend to work the bottle glass that I recycle at around 2200, but that's also just because I'm just doing what I call a day tank. It's only 25 pounds of glass that I'm heating up and working, and I'm getting done that day. But most people who have a furnace that runs 24/7, it's 2100 degrees. Now, as you're melting it, if you're using the batch, is what we call it, just the basics of it, you're going to melt that at 2200 degrees to get a better melt, and then you're going to do a squeeze where you cool it down, and then the glass constricts and it pushes the bubbles out. And it gets you a clearer glass. They probably tried to do that. It probably naturally happened because you probably didn't try to burn as much fuel in the middle of the night. And so it probably naturally occurred, and it naturally did. But by the time I get done with my furnace, the bottom glass is really nice. And the top glass is like,
Very seedy.
it's extremely seedy.
That's a good question, and that is where are the bubbles coming from?
Just air.
So it's because you're melting down all these component parts. Say cullet is like just broken glass that you're recycling.
Yep.
You're just throwing all this broken glass in there, and it's just naturally going to have air bubbles in it. Or if you're working with the batch and you're using the individual components, or even frit, it's going to be broken all up, and so it's just got
you're
air in it.
it's naturally going to trap air.
Okay.
And so that's
it's-
where
yeah.
the bubbles come from. And glass blowers, we typically call those seeds. That's what I've known it as.
So at the beginning of the day, it might be more seedy, and at the
Oh,
end, it's nice
yeah,
and
and well, on the first layer as
Right,
well.
okay.
Like sometimes the first layer, I have a tiki bar, so sometimes I'll make Japanese floats with the first layer or two,
yes,
because I'm
right.
like, this
They'll
this
look
looks pretty.
right?
Yeah, I
They
mean,
look
it's
beautiful. And
it's
then
fine.
you can use the
But
lower
I'm not going to
levels
make the 18th century and
Right.
that stuff. So,
Yeah.
so this is a picture of actually
top-down view.
top-down view of Worcester's furnace based off of Ben
Archaeology.
Franklin's,
Okay.
actually
Oh,
Ben
okay.
Franklin's description of it. So you can see the main thing there. So you can see on the bottom it's got a siege, and then you have the firebox, and you can see the wood being fed in from both sides.
Right.
And they would typically cut their woods in 3-foot lengths, and then they would feed it that way. And then you'd have 4 pots, and those 4 pots were probably 200, 300 pounds. I think I might have seen 400 pounds of glass being melted. And what they probably did was they probably were melting nonstop. So one pot was getting filled,
Right.
and then you would
You'd
work.
work down and then
Yes.
start over
Yeah,
again.
exactly. And then you have the ancillary ovens, and that's where you're getting.
Annealing, or even drying wood, or
Yeah,
who knows?
well, they probably piled wood on top of it.
Right.
Or there's actually, I think, some pictures from Diderot where it's you just see wood everywhere.
Right, yeah.
And I know this is going to come as a shock, but the most common reason for a glass factory to shut down was because it caught on fire.
Yeah.
So,
Again.
yeah, multiple times.
Build
So,
it again.
Yeah. So Stiegel is interesting in that sense because his factory, I think there's a picture of it in here, but it was based on the iron furnace that he had, and so it was brick. It was all brick.
So it could burn down. They could easily rebuild.
Yeah. So
Maybe not.
this is Amelung's furnace, and this would have been in Maryland, and he would have inherited a bunch of glass blowers from Worcester, but also Stiegel. And you can see it's got a wood roof, and it's just got smoke pouring out of it, and that burned down. I know that's a shock, but I think at least twice. So the poor guy. But Amelung is actually mentioned by George Washington, and I believe he had them make them a case bottle set. So.
Right, and the chimneys, we don't need chimneys.
No.
It just pours out. It
Yes.
just smoke
Yep.
everywhere. So
Yep.
don't need it.
So that is Stiegel's.
Okay.
So you can see that's much more. It almost looks
He must
modern,
have made
right?
very small things.
very, very tiny, very tiny. But you can see over to the left. You can see some
Right.
of the glass colors that he
Right.
was using.
Yeah.
So a wide variety.
And that looks, I mean, he's got a chimney and everything.
I look at that and I'm like, oh, that would have been a much better place to work because you could open up those big doors.
Yeah.
It'd be much cooler. You could actually
Well,
get some.
yeah, it must be really strange because it's like you want light, but you don't want light. Because you really, if you don't have a lot of light, you can probably see what's happening with the heat of the glass better. Yeah, no, maybe not.
No, it's
Okay.
it's 2,000 degrees is 2,000 degrees.
Yeah, it's darn
Day-
hot.
day or
Darn
night.
it, I can't see anything.
It's really the heat maintenance. I mean, in my little studio, like dead of winter when it's like 20 degrees, I can get it up to 100 degrees, no problem.
right.
No problem. So I can only imagine these guys.
You got to be ready to sweat.
Yes.
Well, this building did look like maybe he had safety, like maybe he thought about safety. The building
Well,
before that, maybe not quite so.
I think they just based it off of what they knew how to build, and that's what
there
they
you
built.
go.
So,
Right.
so this is just a book on Worcester. This book is
Hard
about
to find book.
yeah, it's about 25 pages long. It cost me a small fortune to get. But you can see it's from Wheaton Village, which is kind of a glass place there in New Jersey. I think Mary Mills is now kind of the head there, and she's a really well-known glass historian, American glass historian.
Okay.
This one was written by Arlene Palmer, and she was kind of the name. Is probably still is the name for that. So, and this is just a bottle shape. So, again, I would kind of call that a chestnut bottle. It's not really flattened yet, but chestnut bottles. Of course, we don't know what chestnuts look like anymore.
Yeah.
But you can see that rim. that rim, I guarantee you, is
Yeah.
folded over.
Yep.
And you can see the color. It's a nice, beautiful, kind of clear green.
Right.
And the markings on it are just the provenance of like how it was passed down and
Right.
how they could attribute it to
Right.
who they could attribute
What
it to.
they know about
Yeah.
it, which
Yeah.
might not be a lot.
And then this is a Stiegel piece, I believe, and it was made for his daughter, her wedding.
So here they're grinding glass.
Yep.
With and the other thing that we haven't talked about, and I know you've got some pictures of, and that is what they called enamel glass.
Yes, yes.
Which is really weird. It just does not seem 18th century to me at all.
yeah,
So
yeah.
let's see. This
So
is,
if you go
yeah.
back to the other slide, I'm sorry.
This
So
one? Yeah.
that piece, you can see the cotton stem is
Right.
kind of how a lot of people term it. That is actually cane that they've made. And so if you go to the next
Right.
slide, that's them pulling cane. So it's basically just a big round blob of glass, and then your assistant helps you, and you pull it, and you just keep pulling, and it makes it into a thin little strip of
Right.
glass. So
There's one here.
these,
Here we go.
yeah, if you want
Put
to
them here in
slide them
front
over
of
there.
this slide.
So you would use color,
Get that. Hold on. Oh,
yep,
there you go.
color there, and the bigger white ones are what make the smaller white stripes. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
you just
There we
you kind of heat those up, you roll them onto a big glob of glass, and then you twist and pull and twist and pull, and you get very tired. But I love pulling cane, and so that's kind of how they would make those fancy stems.
And
for
if
that.
you've ever seen the crazy paperweights with all
Yes.
the,
Yeah.
that's just made from a whole bunch of these little things broken and or put together and make
Yeah.
little flowers.
Yeah. And so Stiegel is kind of the first guy to do that stuff in American glass.
Right.
So he's starting to make more finer things that you could only get from England.
Right. He says,
so-
we can do it. We can do it in America.
That's right. That's right. So here's just some simple shapes, but you can see, those are far from perfect. Far from perfect. But there's two ways. I think the interesting thing on this is there's two ways to get those kind of feet on the bottom there.
Okay.
So the first one would be kind of the thicker foot. This is actually a firing glass. You would make toast with this, so you'd pour glass in and slam it down on the table. So that's why it's thick and looks like a tank. But it's called a footing tool. So it's just a piece of wood and kind of folded, right? And
With a
then,
hinge, yeah.
yep, with a hinge. And the hinge is just made out of leather. You're soaking in water. And then you put a big old glob of glass on the bottom, and then you put it in there, and then
Squeeze and rotate.
Squeeze and rotate, yeah, as you do it. And so the steam kind of does that and gets it together. So, it's pretty tricky. I'm not very good at it. So I need more practice. I am a little bit better at what's called a blown foot. And so a blown foot is usually thinner. It's a little bit more delicate. And so it's exactly what it is. It's a bubble that's been put on the bottom, and then you kind of open that up. And then typically,
Spin it? Or?
yeah, you open it up with
yeah.
your jacks to get there. But as you're doing that, you typically fold over the rim or the foot. And so it's a folded foot. So this is a really nice one. And the reason you fold that over is first, it's just a little fancier.
Stronger and thicker. Yeah,
But two, it's thicker and it holds up better to time. Those are the two main ways that you would apply a foot to a wine glass or a candlestick. So here's some enamel work that Stiegel would do. So they would take the glass that they would make there, and then they would apply almost like a glaze. It's almost identical to how
So
they would
it
make a
looks
glaze.
like paint.
Yes, and that's
But
how they're
it's not.
applying it.
Right.
Well, that's how they're applying
Right.
it. And then you heat that up, and then that melts in just
Right.
like a glaze
Okay.
melts. And what's interesting about this is I kind of wondered how they would get such repetitive designs. And what they would do is they'd actually have blanks that they would put into those glasses,
Okay.
like a wood blank with the design on it.
And then just
And
paint
then they
through
would
it.
just paint, yeah.
Oh, that's cheating.
Yeah, I know it is cheating, isn't it? But that's a very Germanic kind of application. Like the English wasn't doing that, and the Venetians probably weren't doing that. That would be
Right.
too crude for them.
So it's interesting because I mean you can do something similar with pottery. A lot of times you do it before you fire it, or you do another glaze over the top. But here you're using. So is it powdered glass?
I have not done much of this.
Oh come on! You don't have the answer for me.
Well, obviously
I mean,
it's got some kind of binder in there, so maybe a hide glue mixed in with an oxide glass. I doubt that an oxide would just stick to it, so it has to be like some kind of powdered glass.
We're gonna have to do the experiments. Come on.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to get into that. I have gotten a wheel to try to do some engraving, some basic engraving, but yeah. Oh, and that's how they got the engraving in there, was just they would have a wheel and that would turn and it would cut into the glass.
Right.
And then it would give you the shape.
Can't believe you don't want to try this. Although I do think it's hideous. I mean,
Yeah, I mean-
visibly, I think it's just plain hideous.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of just
Those are
really-
flips, so it would be fun to have a flip, but I don't want a flip that's been painted. Like it just doesn't do anything for me. So
So, for in the engraving, was it just something you wanted to explore, or did you get requests for engraving?
no, I don't want to take a request. I don't have
Something crazy.
I don't have that much time.
It's true.
Yeah, I have a full-time job, and this is a busy hobby. But yes, I do want to get into it
Yeah.
because it's just a cool thing to have, and it's just fun.
Well, I
And-
might just take some glass from the groceries, from the store, and just try some pottery over glazes and
That's true. See what happens.
I mean,
because I've
Yeah.
got the kiln. We can just
Dr. Google will tell you all kinds of things, and
true.
YouTube will have all kinds of stuff on there. So
Well,
yeah, there's a lot of people who really do it. It's not very well known. I've done some stained glass, and we use silver stain in that to get some designs. So I've messed around with that a bit, and applying that is you use basically a gum of some kind
Right.
mixed in
probably
with
gum arabic.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and then you apply that, and then you let that dry, and then you bring that up, and then it comes in. But it's tricky getting it to actually adhere to the glass.
Right. Exactly. Or else, I mean, it could just get hot enough, fall off, and then that didn't.
Yes.
It's like
That was-
It needs
yeah.
to. It needs to really stick and stay. Okay, we talked about that one.
Yep. Yep.
We talked about this. You actually holding it. You didn't drop it.
I
It
didn't.
isn't a real
I
thing,
didn't.
right?
I was.
They let you touch it.
I couldn't believe it. I was super excited. So I didn't put
probably
the picture
shaking
of
the whole
me
time.
like with a grin on my face, holding it right up to my face. But yeah, it was. I was super excited to be able to hold it. But it's just amazing, like the scale, because like that previous picture, you would think.
Well,
that's
and I
See,
think
I would've
even
thought
this
it was,
makes
you know.
probably look bigger than it really is. I mean, your thumb is big in that shot, but so I don't know. Was it as
my
was it
biggest.
that-
My thumb is as big as yours, thumb. So.
No, but was it that size?
Yeah.
Okay,
Here we
you
go.
gotta. You gotta
Oh, I'm coming.
Oh, good,
hold
good.
on,
Okay.
hold on.
All right, you're making the cameras work. We got.
What? It's not going. Hello. Ivy, fix it there. That big.
So yeah, about that big. So this is a half pint. So this is a very common size. Usually flasks came in pints and half pints.
So it was about that size.
about
Okay.
half pint.
Okay, let's keep going. Oh, there's that one.
So a lot of times, people are always worried about glass breaking. That's what I always get from people, reenactors especially. And it's just like, well,
You say, hey, break it, and I'll make.
that's right. This is how I stay in business. But they would oftentimes cover them in leather, and that would make it go longer. But I did a little experiment before the show started, and I asked everybody, when was the last time you broke glass? And I ask you at home,
Right.
when was the last time you broke a glass? I'm sure there's someone who broke it today. But, I mean, for the most part, we don't really break glass, right? Because we know it's glass, and we kind of hold on to it. So it's in some ways, it's kind of hard to break glass. So
Sometimes when you want to break it.
yeah, exactly.
Just when I wanted to break glass. Okay, and we're back to the beginning. Show us this little guy.
This one?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so one of the interesting things that I came across was glass powder horns. And Worcester actually made glass powder horns. The example that I saw was a flat powder horn, probably a priming powder horn. But you get into post 1812, and it seems like this kind of becomes a fashion statement for hunters on a squirrel hunt out there, and they would use glass. And
Well, you could tell how much was in it.
yeah, and yes, exactly. And so I've seen examples of powder horns in Winterthur. I've seen it in Corning, and every single one of them has powder residue in it. And in fact, when I was walking through the back kind of cases with one of the ladies at Winterthur, and I said, "Do you guys have any powder horns?" She's like, "No, we don't." And then I walked past, and I was like,
like, wow.
That one
"That's
with-
that's a powder horn."
What'd they
And I
think
said,
it
"And that
was?
actually has powder in it." And she kind of
Freaked out.
freaked out for a second. I was like, "It's just
It's
kind
not
of
going to explode.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of residue, so it's no big deal." But so this is one of the ones I'm going to have in the auction at CLA show.
Right.
But it also has this kind of application, which is an American thing. Later, usually 1850s, but it's called a lily pad design. And so you would see that a lot in New Jersey glass, southern New Jersey glass. But then there was other kind of practical things. So you have, the linen smoothers, what I call them, or
You could use it on paper.
paper too.
To smooth
And-
paper surface.
Yep. And so it's really good for getting you creases and things like that. The Vikings had this, the Romans had this. You just find these everywhere. When I was traveling in Nova Scotia, a lot of the forts and stuff like that actually had some of these left over, and so that was very interesting to see. And then another favorite thing that I've gotten into lately is sugar bowls. And so you have a covered lid on a bowl, and of course it keeps the critters out of the sugar, hopefully. But it allowed them to make some really
So
fun
you did
designs.
this little work on the top here. Let me
Yeah.
show. Let me
Yeah.
pop into that.
So that's a swan. That was one of the
You
first
shouldn't
things.
have to tell us what it is. Of course, it's a swan.
I have a turkey. I have a turkey over here too, that I can show you that I'm actually very proud
Looks
of.
like a bear, though.
So, oh no.
Can you find it?
Yeah, I can find it.
Put that off of there.
Now that
There we
I'm
go.
completely
Here's the bear. That
wired
looks
up.
like a turkey. No,
Yeah.
it's a turkey.
Yeah,
Look
it's
at
a turkey.
that.
Oh, very nice.
I figured.
Possibly an alien.
So yeah, they would put little critters on top of the
Sugar bowls.
the sugar bowls, and it was just a fun little thing to use.
That's great.
There's some beautiful ones that Amlung has made.
Mm-hmm.
Stiegel made some, and in Worcester made some as well. So
Good. So we're way past time.
Sorry.
How can people find out more about you?
I am most active on Instagram, Potter Jenkins Glassworks. Potter, not as in ceramic potter, but
Like Peter.
yeah, as in priest in Latin.
You'll put the link in. Yeah.
Yep. So that's where I'm most active. I will be at the CLA show. I will be at Mississinawa 1812 this year as well. Hopefully blowing glass at Mississinawa. So I'm working on a traveling studio. So we'll see if I can get that to work. And then I have just a very small YouTube channel that I post videos to once every 4 years, it seems.
Hey, good.
And so there's just some. There's actually a video of me making the handle on this, which is pretty fun. And then Facebook as well, but again, I'm not as active on Facebook. So those are kind of my big things. If you want to see kind of a wood-fired furnace in action, I encourage you to go to the Corning Museum of Glass YouTube page. They have some stuff. They're doing Roman glass, but it gives you the idea.
Yeah.
And then there's also, if you want to know how they make crown glass for windows or the flat glass, there's some German factories that still make that. And so you can watch them blow that. And it's just look it up.
There's
It's
some amazing glass videos on YouTube if you want to see the
It's
Indians
fascinating.
doing glass.
Oh, it's crazy.
That's nuts. Or
Yeah.
the old newsreel kind of British
English path.
English stuff is amazing. Amazing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much
Thank you.
for bringing all this stuff and traveling up here and giving us all your wonderful information. It is one of those topics that we could probably spend half a day on and not even kind of get to, all the little intricacies and all the fun little bits, because it dives into a lot of different kinds of things we don't think about. We think America 250 years ago, and it was primitive, and they were like cavemen with maybe blue coats, and then it's not that, but it is sort of the seeds of industrial revolution, and a lot of this is part of that story. The fact that they're trying to break through in the middle of the 18th century and make glass that competes with England and maybe even goes beyond that, or at least tries to do something different. It's a lot here and some real fun stories.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's fascinating. I love to talk about it. So thank you for having me.
Special thanks to everyone out there, especially you super chatters. Wait, do you have anything you need
We're
to jump
good.
in with? Okay, we're good. Special thanks to all you super chatters and Patreon folks and members. I didn't bring the list like I'm supposed to because I was so excited about the topic and researching for it. So I didn't bring that. But you guys are the reason why we're here and talking about this crazy stuff because you're interested, and so we are too. Thank you so much for all your wonderful comments and your support for what we do. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Ivy. And thank you for bringing all this wonderful information.
Thank you.
Have a tremendous weekend, and thanks for watching.